O Lord, our governor, whose glory is revealed both in the ordered basis and beauty of nature and the moral law within us, we ask thy blessing upon all those in our community who are responsible for our civic welfare, health, and security, especially for these, our mayor and commissioners, that they may continue the service of thy people. May thy Holy Spirit guide them in all their deliberations and decisions, that they may care only for what will promote good government, may ever seek not the praise of men, but only thy honor and approval. To all others in responsible positions, give such a sense of duty that may not be weakened by self-interest. We remember before thee also those who serve our community in dangerous or burdensome work, for we are all members one of another, and all labor is honorable in thy sight. Help us to remember the teaching and example of Jesus Christ, that he who is accounted great among us must be the willing servant of all. Bless our community with civic tranquility, vision, compassion, and a warm concern for each other, that we may show forth thy praise in building together a city indwelt by thy Spirit, and help us each to do well the work thou hast given us for the good of all. Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Without objection, we'll suspend the calling of the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of the members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion for adoption of the minutes of the August 3rd meeting? Without objections, the minutes will stand approved. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
No, ma'am, there are not.
Thank you. Before we move on with our agenda, there are a couple of announcements, least of which, not least, is that Greg and Kim Atkins had Abigail Grace today at noon. Everyone seems to be doing quite well, and you have the picture on your email. Also on your desk, there is a letter concerning the vacancy on the Community Education Commission. The replacement is for a representative from the nonprofit adult literacy organizations. We will be accepting nominations through August the 31st, and then we will make the recommendation on our meeting on September 7th. Also on September 7th, we will elect the new pro tem, and there will be a special meeting on September the 7th to consider the charter amendments, but you'll be receiving more information about that. That will be prior to the public hearing that evening. Next on the agenda is a proposed amendment to Rule Number 31 to the Rules and Procedures of the Metropolitan Council. Councilmember Wilhoit.
Yes, Councilmember, I asked for approval in reference to this rule change. Could I have the committee report, please?
Councilmember Page.
Thank you. The Rules and Confirmation Committee approved 6-4, 2 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilhoit.
Yes, council members, I ask for your approval of this particular rule change. It's going to definitely be able to create more authority on your part to be able to allow the public or any individual to be able to speak before the council. And before I go any further, if you would, Mr. Cooper, could you please provide them with some additional information in reference to this rule change as well?
This rule change essentially makes two changes to the existing rule that allows the council to vote with a 2/3 majority to allow members of the public to address the council. This limits the scope to only addressing legislation that is currently pending with the council, and it would also allow the council to approve such a motion at the meeting prior to the meeting when the public hearing is to be held. The way the rule is worded now, the motion must be made at that meeting, and this would allow it to be made at the previous meeting.
With that explanation also being provided for further clarity, I ask for your approval.
Councilman Foster.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Under normal circumstances, given the fact we're at near the end of a term, you might have expected me to rise in opposition to a rule change, but I think there's a lot of wisdom in this rule. I appreciate the sponsor's willingness to add the additional language regarding limiting the scope of the public hearing. I think it's important that we hear from our constituents. I don't think that the decorum of the place and the way our council works would be well served with the kind of public input that some other councils and other places permit. But I think this will give us the latitude when we need to speak to somebody and have them speak to us that we can do it, and it gives us a good opportunity to set it up in advance so that everyone gets proper notice. So I would encourage you to vote for this rule change. Thank you.
Councilmember Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John, in your opinion, is this more restrictive or less restrictive than what's actually on the rule today?
More restrictive.
More restrictive.
Councilmember Wilhoit, you wish to speak again?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to, I would definitely have been amiss if I did not also provide the thank you to Councilmember Foster for his added input on the legislation as it was being composed. So I appreciate you, Councilman Foster, for that. Thank you.
We will need a machine vote. Madam Clerk.
Ayes 29, noes 7, 1 abstention.
The motion passes. Now we're at rules, elections and confirmations. Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Rules and Confirmation Committee considered appointments to 8 various boards and commissions. First, we considered the appointment of Mr. Saul Solomon to the Airport Authority. We approved 6 in favor, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilmember Page.
Next, we considered the reappointment of Mr. Jim Hubler to the Historic Commission. We voted 6 in favor, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Next, we considered the appointment of Mr. Don Peterson to the Human Relations Commission. We voted 7 in favor, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Next, we considered the reappointment of Jan Bushing to the Property Standards and Appeals Board. We voted in favor, 7-4, 0 against. Bobby Boner and Nicole Dunnigan were deferred.
We have a motion and a second on Jan Bushing. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilmember Page.
Next, we considered the reappointment of Mike Modi to Tourism and Convention Services. We voted in favor, 7-4, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilmember Page.
Next, we voted for the reappointment of Mr. Louis Levine to the Transit Authority. We voted 8 in favor, 0 against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing. Saul Solomon, Jim Hubler, Don Peterson, Jan Bushing, Mike Modi, and Louis Levine. On behalf of the Metro Council, thank you for your willingness to serve our city. Next on our agenda is RS 2010-1204, appropriate $65,000 in community development block grant funds for the installation of bus stop benches and a community garden in the Chestnut Hill neighborhood. Councilmember Moore.
Federal Grants Review Committee voted in favor 5-4, 0 against, and I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1337 authorizes the Metro Council Public Safety Committee to conduct an investigation regarding the loss of in-car camera video footage for approximately 1,600 police traffic stops. Councilman Tygart.
Committee report, please.
Councilman Baker.
Public Safety voted 4 in favor, 2 against.
Thank you, Councilman Tygart.
Madam Chair, I'd move approval with a brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Tygart.
Thank you. I think one thing I need to clear up, Madam Chair, from the very start is that this attempt to investigate what happened is going to be some kind of attempt to place blame or to impede the investigative or legal process. Mr. Cooper, in your personal opinion, can the Metro Council, working in conjunction with you and the cooperation of Metro Legal, conduct public hearings on the loss of 1,300 videos in a professional manner that would not compromise any future legal actions by any of the affected parties?
As your council, if the council decides to do this, I would certainly make it a priority to work with Metro Legal to ensure that Metro's position is not compromised in any way.
Thank you. Obviously, council members, when the framers of the Metro Charter decided to put this provision in, they felt there was a need in certain very unusual and cases that extreme public safety was compromised, that the council, as the legislative body for this county, have the authority to conduct these hearings. This would be no more than what Senators Alexander and Corker and Congressman Cooper conducted on the flood, that our own Mayor Dean testified at, what our state legislature conducts hearings on matters of public safety many times. If 1,300 cases of felons, of people who were suspected of drunken driving, reckless driving, endangering the public, were suddenly let out of our jail or escaped from our jail onto our public streets, we as the legislative body would be outraged and furious that public safety could be so compromised. In today's technology, think about this is nothing more than a breach of public safety where potentially 1,300 plus cases of people who might have driven drunk, might have driven recklessly, but certainly had probable cause to be stopped by our hardworking police officers, compromise public safety. I would hope these hearings that we would conduct would answer such questions that seem to me just be very basic at this point. For instance, how did 2 months pass, over 2 months pass, before this incident, this loss of data become public knowledge? What would happen if taxpayers knew that we had purchased a $100,000 backup system with their money and we weren't even using the system? How could any one individual or company have access to evidence that is critical to investigations? What is the effect of the loss of this video on pending court cases? How many police hours
have been wasted potentially by the loss of this data. These are police officers out there doing their job, protecting our citizens. Who are the individuals in these tapes? How many of them might have had prior arrests and/or convictions? And finally, if an accident should occur today with one of these folks that might potentially have been taken off the street and killed one of my loved ones or one of your loved ones, how would you feel? Council members, Madam Chair, this was not my idea. This is a little-known provision that very few of us remembered or knew that it was there. But a General Sessions judge says, Councilman, it is time for the Metro Council to step up and to find out what happened in these cases and to ask some pertinent questions that may or may not be asked now. So I would ask for your support with the understanding that the hearings would be done in such a manner that would not impede any legal matters that might occur in the future, and that it's time for us as a council to say, we want some of these breaches and some of these issues stopped. Thank you.
Councilman Foster.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Yesterday in committee, I voted in favor of the resolution. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to vote tonight. I did have a few questions, particularly for the Director of Law, for Ms. Kane, and understanding the sensitive nature of discussions with the council representing the company in question. I'm wondering, Ms. Kane, if you can give me some idea of where we stand vis-a-vis the company, what the timeline is for your investigation. I am concerned that that the council not do anything to joggle your arm as you're taking aim on behalf of the city. So could you give me a little information?
Well, at this point, we've had good discussions with the council for the vendor. We have reached an agreement that we will jointly select a recovery specialist in this area. They are considering names now. That agreement has not been reached on who that will be. They've agreed that together they will come up with a statement of work. Police Information Systems and the company will come up with a statement of work. They will determine what caused the failure and which party, if it can be determined, is responsible for that. They will determine which files can be recovered and recover those. And then they will make a list of those files that cannot be recovered. And I can't remember if I already said, but the costs will also follow the fault. If it can't be determined, we'll split it. And if it can be determined, the party at fault will pay the cost of the recovery.
And what kind of timeline do you anticipate following for this?
If I said as quickly as possible, you know, I don't know. I can't say that.
Do you think it's a matter within a month?
Oh, well within a month.
Well within a month, okay.
Now, wait just a second. Yeah. Yes, well within a month.
Okay, thank you. Madam Vice Mayor, Again, I don't know at this moment if the vote were called right now how I would vote. I'm not sure that that I want to bring a motion for deferral, but it's something I'm curious. Perhaps I'll ask the sponsor through the chair if the sponsor might be willing for us to defer this just a bit to let such facts as there are come out without us having to duplicate effort. Or is this a matter that the sponsor really feels tonight is something he wants to press on?
Councilman Tigert.
If I could hear a few more comments, I know Councilman Craddock has some comments also, and I will entertain your motion now.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I had a couple of questions. Is the committee chair for the Safety Committee involved with the investigation at all at the council level? And I would assume Sue Kane would need to answer that.
My discussions have been, or our discussions have been with the company, the vendor, and with the Information Technology Department, Mr. Durbin, and with the police department.
Okay, so currently there's no council involvement
No, right now it's an administrative matter.
Okay. If you can answer this, I don't know if you can, are the cases involved in these lost files, are they irreparably damaged, or?
I don't think people know at this point. I think the idea of bringing in a recovery specialist is to see if they can be recovered, and I'm certain that the hope is that they can be recovered, but I can't say that. I don't know what they will find.
Okay, and one other, in this discussion with the various parties, is there a procedure looking to be put in place to protect against this occurring in the future? Because a simple backup of these files could have prevented this case.
I would defer to Mr. Durbin in answering those kinds of questions, and I too would assume you could back up, since it seems like we can back up just about everything.
Okay. I would echo Councilman Foster's desire. If we could defer this, I think we can get to the bottom of this without our involvement. I would entertain that if the sponsor wants to do that.
Councilman Craddock.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I too have a question for Ms. Kane, if that's okay. Ms. Kane, when did you folks reach an understanding with the council of the software company?
Today.
Today. So that was after they were quoted in the Tennessean of accusing the police department that it was their fault. You know, there was an article in last week's Tennessean.
I really didn't read it, but I understand there was.
You don't read the Tennessean?
When I have time.
I thought everybody read the Tennessean.
I just missed that one article.
Okay. Michael Cash is turning red back there. Look at him. Bless his heart. Look, you know what? Typically, if I want your vote, I'll ask for your vote. And I've not asked for one of you's vote tonight. I've asked three of you how you would vote. Because this is an issue, I think, that is somewhat personal. It goes to transparency in government. That's the issue. I have police cameras in my district, and many of you do. And there is a chain of evidence. If a crime occurs in the scope of one of these cameras, it is recorded to the hard drive, maybe it is, and if the police department wants that hard drive, our contractor, Stanfield Electric, has to go out and take the hard drive out of the camera, and a police officer has to accompany them and take possession of the hard drive. Where is the chain of evidence with these videos? Why was a company allowed access to these videos or not? And so this really is about transparency. It is about getting answers. You know, I own two computers. Neither one of them are on an iPad, quite frankly. But one at my office is really old, and so last week it started flickering, and I just become scared to death that I was going to lose everything I had. Well, I get online, and for $54.95, I go to carbonite.com, and they back up my hard drive every time I'm online. And the computer's hooked to a network, so I'm online all the time. So they're backing it up. I don't lose anything. $55. Now, can't the government do that? I mean, can't we figure out a system to back stuff up? And so this really is about answers. You know, put yourself in the shoes of someone who has been wronged by a DUI driver, who's lost a grandmother or mother or child, who's been in an accident. And, you know, as we speak, the Metropolitan Police Department doesn't even know who these 1,300 people are. They don't even know who they are. And so I would encourage you to vote your conscience. I'm going to vote to try my best to get answers for the taxpayers of this city. That's what it's all about from my perspective. It's not a witch hunt. It's just getting some answers. Because you know what? At the end of the day, enough is enough of this. It's just enough. Thank you.
Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate the sponsors and their attempt to try to bring some transparency to this. I agree that this is unacceptable, the loss of this data. My question, though, is to Mr. Cooper or to Ms. Kane. If the council, Metro Council Public Safety Committee does not investigate this, who does?
Well, I think the Department of Law is working with the police department and ITS to find out what happened, to find out what can be done. They've apparently agreed today with the counsel for the vendor that they will bring in a third party to data recovery specialist to see what they can recover and what can be done. So, I mean, I know they internally they are looking to see what happened and try and find out where to go from there.
So there are steps that are being taken to find out and to get these answers through the government right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to kindly and respectfully ask the sponsor to defer this bill. And the reason I'm going to do that is we do have an investigation, an internal administrative investigation going on. And I think this council can give them time to see how that turns out. I will adamantly stand with you if we do not get sufficient, reasonable reports back to tell us that what went wrong and what's got to be done right. So I would really like to have you to do that. The one last thing I want to say, and I want to clarify something. And I'm not a police officer by any means, but understand that just because these films were lost doesn't mean that if they were a DUI, that they didn't go through the sobriety check with the police officer. So the police officer can still testify. For years, we tried these cases, and I'm sure we still do try them without any video backup. And it is my understanding a lot of the video is not specifically about arrests. It's about all kinds of stops. It could be so much as a warning. It could be a DUI. It could be something even more serious. So respectfully, I'm going to yield the rest of my time to Councilman Tigert, if I may, and for him to close. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, I'd move to defer this to the second meeting in September. And I would point out that I don't know whether the filing of this resolution had any bearing or not, but at the time that it was filed, there was no pending agreement. We had two parties pointing fingers in the media at each other and no apparent resolution on the horizon. So I would like to think that perhaps some small role that the council played in bringing this forward might have helped this investigation forward. And trust me, Councilman Duvall, Councilman Craddock, and others, Ms. Kane, I trust her that this 30 days or less that a resolution and some answers will be forthcoming. But I just hope and pray that whatever circumstances that occurred that caused this potential breach and this damage have been taken care of, and that the system that's now in place, that our dedicated, loyal police officers out in the field has been corrected and their work is not being wasted. So I would respectfully renew that motion for deferral.
There are 3 folks in the queue. Do you want to speak on the motion to defer? Councilman Maynard?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. My question is, if there's a resolution that's reached between now and the second meeting in September, Ms. Kane, is there anything legally prohibitive in you or any concerns on your part in providing a report on your investigation? Because it may be considered work product. I'm not sure. I'm asking you. Would there be any problems in providing a report on the facts or the findings of facts, or any report that you can give us if you do resolve this within the next 30 days?
As I sit here, I don't think there would be, but I reserve the right to, if something comes up that, as you say, would be work product or create a problem, I will let you know that. But right now, as I sit here, I do not see a problem with that.
Councilman Claiborne?
I just had a question about the recovery specialist. Is their purpose to recover the files, or are they also trying to figure out what went wrong to cause the files to go away?
Both of those things.
Okay, so will this person be chosen by the two different sides?
Jointly, there will be names
Jointly.
suggested. There are people who do this in the field who are well-known for it, and I don't anticipate, as I sit here, a problem come to an agreement on one that we both think is very good.
Okay, so I guess I'm kind of tagging on what Councilman Maynard said. Will this person provide a written report to legal and to both sides?
Yes. It's my understanding there's going to be a written report. I would definitely expect one.
Okay, so that would be a public document then that we would be able to access, and that would have basically the same kind of findings in it that this hearing would have as a purpose to achieve, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Langster, you want to speak on the deferral? Okay, that's the motion we're on. Okay. All in favor of deferral to the second meeting in September, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The deferral motion passes. RS 2010-1338 approves an account-based self-insured medical benefits plan for Metro employees and pensioners. Councilman Stein.
Committee reports.
Councilman Claiborne.
Personnel Committee voted 7-0 against.
Councilman Stein.
Budget approved 9-4, none against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1339 accepts an annual grant from the Tennessee Arts Commission to the Metro Arts Commission for funding community arts projects. Councilman Stein.
Budget approved 9-4, none against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1340 approves an amendment to a state grant to the Davidson County Sheriff's Office for expansion of the Metro Detention Facility. Councilmember Baker.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Stein.
Budget approved 9-4, none against.
Councilman Baker.
Public Safety voted 5 in favor, 0 against. And move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1341 approves an amendment to a federal grant to the state trial courts to reduce recidivism rates among felony offenders with mental health and substance abuse disorders. Councilman Stein.
Budget approved 9-4, none against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1342 approves a state grant from the Tennessee Board of Probation and Parole to the state trial courts to fund the Davidson County Community Corrections Program. Councilmember Baker.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Stein.
Budget approved 9-4, none against.
Councilman Baker.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1343 approves an annual grant from the State Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to prepare dislocated workers for re-entry into the labor force. Councilmember Stein.
Committee reports.
Councilman Claiborne.
Personnel Public Relations voted 7-0 against.
Councilman Stein.
Budget approved 9-4, none against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1344 approves an annual grant from the State Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to prepare adult workers for reentry into the labor force. Councilmember Stein.
Committee report.
Councilman Claiborne.
Personnel Human Relations voted 7-0 against.
Councilman Stein.
Budget approved 9-4, none against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1345 approves a contract between the Metro Board of Health and Financial Marketing Concepts Incorporated to provide a discount prescription drug card to residents of Metro government. Councilmember Bennett.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Stein.
Budget moved to defer 9-4, none against.
Councilman Tigert.
Health hospitals moved to defer 5-0.
Councilmember
Move for
Bennett.
one meeting deferral, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of one meeting deferral, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1346 approves an application for a Tennessee Roadscapes grant from the State Department of Transportation for improvements to the front entrance to the Hermitage. Councilmember Jernigan.
Committee report, please.
Councilman Hunt.
Public Works approved, 5-4, 0 against.
Councilman Stein.
Budget approved, 10-4, none against.
Councilman Jernigan.
Move approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1347 authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle Metro government's property damage claim against Johnny Curry. Councilman Stein.
Budget approved, 10-4, none against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. RS 2010-1348 authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle Metro government's personal injury claim against Kristen Goebel. Councilman Stein.
Budget approved, 10-4, none against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on introduction and first reading. Is there a motion for their approval? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on second reading. BL 2010-650 amends the Metro Code to require the Department of Public Works to inform disabled drivers parking at Metro facilities that there is no charge for parking their vehicles. Councilman Gatto.
Committee reports.
Councilman Stein.
Budget approved, 10-4, none against.
Councilman Gatto.
The Traffic and Parking Committee approved 5-4-0 against, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-714 amends the Metro Code to exempt restaurants that possess a valid license issued by the Tennessee Alcoholic Beverage Commission for on-premises sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages from the minimum distance requirement for obtaining beer permits upon the adoption of a resolution by the Metro Council. Councilman Holland.
Committee report.
Councilman Baker.
Public Safety voted 6 in favor, 1 not voting.
Councilman Holland.
Vice Mayor, I move the substitute with a brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Holland.
What the substitute will permit is passage of an exemption by resolution as opposed to 3 readings in an ordinance going to the Planning Commission. It'll be before the entire council. There is notice to the affected community, the payment of which is borne by the applicant. He'll be on a regular council night. Failure of the restaurant to maintain its state ABC liquor license will be grounds for revocation of the beer permit. And I renew my motion.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Councilman Holland.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second on the bill as amended. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-731 appropriates an amount not to exceed $200,000 from the unappropriated fund balance of the general fund of the General Services District to the Department of Water and Sewage Services for the purpose of providing limited economic recovery credits to customers that were directed to cease using public drinking water for plant nursery stock and washing cars during the period of mandatory water conservation following the May 2010 flooding at the K.R. Harrington Water Treatment Plant. Councilmember Evans.
I'd like to defer this indefinitely with a brief explanation.
Councilman Hunt, could we have a committee report?
Oh, sorry, committee report.
The Public Works Committee deferred this bill indefinitely by a vote of 5-4-0 against.
And no recommendation from Budget and Finance, so Councilmember Evans.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I brought this just by way of background so that, you know, as this progresses, we have some more information. I brought this bill because I thought, after talking to water and our lawyers and legal, that the otherwise outstanding behavior of Metro Water Services during the flood, they had made, in my opinion, and I think most people in this room probably agree, a mistake. And that mistake was to single out one non-essential water user, which was the car wash, and close them for 30 days. No other business in this city was closed for 30 days as a result of the water conservation effort. We didn't shut them down because our data told us they were big water users. They're not, actually. We didn't shut them down because we had identified them in a plan that in the event of drought they would be closed down. We just made a capricious and arbitrary decision to close them down. These are mom and pop businesses. They're owned by minorities. They're owned by women. These are not large businesses. They don't have lobbyists. They don't have lawyers. And I think we made a mistake. Now, the administration, I think, has wrongly taken this bill as a criticism of the flood relief effort and the flood response, which it is indeed not. It's just, in my view, an admission that we made an error and we need to make it right. And most members, it seems, would like to allow the car washes to pursue legal remedies through the courts or claims or whatever. So we're going to let that proceed. I'm going to defer it indefinitely. We'll watch how the progress goes with the lawyers and all that stuff, and bring it back if necessary. So thank you for your time, and we'll keep you posted.
There was a second, correct? Okay, thank you. Councilman Coleman?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a point of clarification, Mr. Reaver and perhaps Councilman Evans may have overstated or stated your point. Would you give us the administration position as to how this bill would play out?
I'm not sure, Councilman. I mean, the applicants would make a request to get some money rebated under water bills, and the money would come from the city's unappropriated fund balance.
Right, and I guess my position is that if the administration don't feel that this is appropriate, I was asking for the particular reason. Are you the person to address that?
I think this is a policy decision for the council to make if they choose to. I mean, I think it's, our fund balance levels are where they are, and the different parties have met on this, and it's up to the council to take action on this.
Well, that is the truth. However, the position is that they're speaking with the representative from the car wash is speaking with the administration, and there's some cloud in the air as to whether or not the administration would support so. And just so that we'll know, we'll have track of it. I was just trying to find out what may be some of your reservations about it, if any at all.
I mean, I think any time you take money out of the fund balance is something the council should take very serious.
Okay. Vice Mayor, I'll yield the balance of my time to Councilman Evans.
And I'm glad Councilman Coleman brought that up, because I wasn't going to ask this question, but I'll ask it now, and that is, Mr. Riebling, you signed the bill as to availability of funds, correct?
That's correct. We have more than this amount in the fund balance, no question about that. That's the only basis on which I could sign it.
Okay, so we do have the money.
I didn't say we didn't have the money. I just said anytime you take money out of the fund balance, it's an important decision, which you on several occasions have pointed out to me is very important for the financial condition of the city.
Ooh. I guess my question is, if you're opposed to, and I know Councilman Mitchell had a bill that you wouldn't sign off on that was similar to this. I guess I'm trying to understand why you sign off on some bills and why you don't sign off on others.
I just want to remind folks that we are on the motion and the second for indefinite deferral, and I wish we would limit our discussion to the motion for indefinite deferral.
Okay, so back to the point is, the bill was signed off. I thought the administration was in agreement until the very last minute, Councilman Coleman. But in any event, we'll bring it back and pursue the usual process.
Councilman Gatto on indefinite deferral.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since we're getting ready to defer this bill indefinitely, I have a question I want to get answered. When we left here the last meeting, we deferred this bill for the purpose of Metro Water, the administration, whoever's sitting down with these folks and trying to work this out. What happened? I mean, if the administration says that this is a policy decision by the council, And I don't know how the vote would turn out on this, but in good faith, we deferred this bill last time by a majority vote of this council for it to be worked out, and nothing apparently has happened. So I guess I'm curious as to where we are with this. And, this isn't rocket science. And I don't know why we're making these folks have to wait, why we're going to make them have to go to the expense of getting attorneys and taking this to court. So I guess I'm a little in the dark here as to what's really going on.
Can anybody address if there was a meeting?
I wasn't in the meeting, so I don't know.
I was in the meeting. There was a meeting. There was a discussion of the sources of revenues to pay to fund these credits, and the concerns related to the financial condition of the city, and to reducing the fund balance, and to the possibility of having federal funds that would be, I forget the kind of grant funds, but a specific kind of grant funds that might be available in the next several months that they would be eligible for. That is the discussion, and they did not leave with any agreement.
Councilman Tigert?
Yes, ma'am. During the period of the deferral, I'd like to request that the administration, working through the water department, provide us with a monthly revenue report. It would seem to me during drought periods, people use more water. Perhaps that fund balance is increasing larger than expected.
Can I explain just quickly, if you don't mind?
Please.
Okay, the funds that come in from the water department cannot be used because of bond problems. So the funds that would be used for this, as it is right now, would be from the general fund balance, not from the water services balances. So while there may be an increase in revenues from the water department, that really doesn't affect the fund balance.
Different money then.
Yes, sir.
Could we still have the figures from the water department as to whether their revenues are above or below expectations during the period of the deferral?
I can tell you for the fiscal year, their revenues were down considerably. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we'll get those for you.
Starting July 1, the new year.
Thank you. All in favor of indefinite deferral, please say aye. Opposed, no. Indefinite deferral passes. BL 2010-732 adopts the state enabling legislation to permit personal property taxes for properties damaged by the May 2010 flood to be prorated. Councilman Stein.
Budget voted to approve, 10-4, none against. I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-733 declares the Walter Stokes School property located at 3701 Belmont Boulevard to be surplus and authorizes the Director of Public Property Administration to sell the property. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilman Stein.
Budget voted to defer, 10-4, none against.
Councilmember Lalonde.
Education Committee voted 7-4, 0 against.
Councilman Gatto.
Planning and Zoning voted to defer to the second meeting in September, 5-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to defer to the second meeting in September with a brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
McGuire.
I just wanted to assure the council that both at the Planning Commission and the next Budget and Finance and Planning and Zoning Committee meetings, I will ensure that officials from both Lipscomb and Metro Public Schools are available for questions and concerns, and if members of the council can deem any other entity they would like to be there, I will certainly work to get them there as well. Thank you. I renew my motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Lalonde.
I just wanted to make sure I clarified that we voted to defer. That was 7 in favor of deferral and 0 against, not for approval of the bill.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of Councilman Craddock?
I'm going to support the deferral, and let me tell you why. Because there were so many questions yesterday in the Budget and Finance Committee, and nobody from the school board was here at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. And I'm glad we moved to defer it, because now the city paper evidently quotes Lipscomb, and I think they've got the check already wrote. They've got, I don't know if they have the amount on the check, but I think the check is on somebody's desk over there, and it says Metropolitan Government. Now, here we go back to transparency. You know, this is a very same kind of rumor that started with the fairgrounds. It was the HCA. Now, if you're going to have a rule or a system or a structure, follow the rule. Don't circumvent the rule. Don't get in the back room and work a deal out and then come to the council and have something declared surplus so somebody can buy it. Put it on eBid and let them, matter of fact, call an auctioneer and just auction the thing off. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care who buys it. Lipscomb's okay with me. It doesn't matter. But do we have to do things like this? Well, I think not. And I'm not ever going to support a measure where it appears that this has occurred. Perception is the cruelest form of reality. And you know what? If it looks like it, it most likely is. Now, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough of this. That's enough of this. We have to be transparent. So that's why it's being deferred. That's exactly why it's being deferred.
Okay, all in favor of the deferral, please say aye. Opposed? Deferral passes. Next is 2010-734. Amends the Metro Code to provide for free parking for environmentally friendly vehicles in parking meter zones. Councilman Holloman.
Committee reports, please.
Councilman Stein.
Budget voted to defer, 9-4, 1 against.
Councilman Gatto.
Traffic and Parking voted to defer to the second meeting in September, 5-4-0 against.
Thank you. Councilman Holloman.
Move to defer to the second meeting in September, and in the interim, refer to the Traffic and Parking Commission.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-735 amends the Metro Code to require watercraft stored on single or two-family residential property to be fully operational and licensed by the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Councilman Ryman.
Codes Committee approved 5-4, 0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to ask for your approval with a brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second.
This bill is a tool in our toolbox with codes. It simply parallels the book on the code in the book. It parallels the code on the books about abandoned vehicles, that vehicles must be licensed. It doesn't have anything to do with codes checking license. It's if a vehicle is stored improperly, if a boat is stored improperly without proper tags, then you would receive a notice to remove or update.
Councilman Forkham.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to speak to this briefly to say, and I talked to the sponsors a little bit about this, but I think I was going to ask Mr. Cooper, can this be amended on third? Because I think there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. A district like mine, I have a lot of folks who own boats, who use the river, who use Old Hickory Lake. There's a lot of storage boats, and I agree with something needs to be done about the improper storage of boats, inoperable boats that's stored out in the front yard with trash in them. I mean, those are problems. But this doesn't address, does it? And let me ask you this. What about motorized boats versus non-motorized boats, canoes? What about John boats where you can take a motor and take a motor off, and that really dictates whether you have to license to TWRA or not?
This would be conditioned upon whether the boat is to be licensed with the TWRA. I mean, if it does not have to be licensed under state law, then codes would not be able to cite them for that.
But that's my whole point. What does it have to do with TWRA being the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency who license boats? What difference does it make? If it's improperly stored, it's improperly stored. It shouldn't have any difference whether it's got numbers on it or not. And you're looking, because, you know, like I said, you can go out there and slip a motor on it and go in the water. You have to have a license. You take the motor off and just float with paddles, you don't have to have a license.
Right, and I mean, the sponsor working with codes, I think TWRA was identified because that is the only regulatory authority over boats. I mean, there had to be some way to check it, and that's what they came up with.
But the TWRA don't care where you store them. Metro cares where you store them.
But they are the only state entity that issues licenses or certificates for boats.
But do we need to be licensed to store a boat? That's my question. I mean,
would under this bill.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but is there a real need to do that? I mean, codes can come out and see a boat on the front lawn on top of your house, and then, you know, it can be. That's just my point. But I think there need to be some amendments. I may come back with
It
amendments.
could be amended on third reading with, if the council suspended the rules.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no.
There was argumentative discussion, and there was, are we voting on the bill
The
to move?
motion was for approval
on
in the
second?
second.
Okay. I also have my light on requesting to speak.
Sorry, I didn't see that. Go right ahead. We apparently didn't vote on this one, so go right ahead.
Well, my concern was brought up by Councilman Forcum. You know, we have a number of folks that have unmotorized vehicles or unmotorized boats, and we need to define that before we move forward. If it has to be unanimous approval to amend on second read or third reading, I think we need to defer this and get it right before we move forward.
Thank you. Is that a motion?
So move.
We have a motion and a second for deferral. Councilmember Page.
I'm happy to defer this, but let me try to clarify why I felt that it was necessary for the boats to, and I've been a boat owner, so this isn't about no boats. We have no tool to get rid of boats that are sitting in yards that have been there for long periods of time. It doesn't matter how they're stored or whatever, but most boat owners are going to have current license, which you can get 3 years out. You don't have to get them every year. There's no inspection. It's simply mailing in and getting your boat license. The smaller craft, canoes, kayaks, I think we can do an amendment maybe later. I think that we start with this and then see how problematic the smaller vehicles or the smaller boats are. I guess I would ask for a little more conversation, and remember that codes did pass this 5 in favor, 0 against.
I have just been advised that we did take a vote, even though some people were not aware what we were voting on, so the bill has passed on second reading. We're now at bills on third reading. BL 2009-601 amends the Metro Code to allow parking on both sides of certain narrow streets in Old Hickory. Councilmember Jernigan.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Please move the bill as amended.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-710 amends the Metro Code pertaining to the location restrictions for the issuance of permits to sell beer within certain areas of downtown. Councilmember Jameson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This was procedurally a little bit different. I understand from Mr. Cooper that I'm to request a roll call motion for public hearing that will require 27 votes. We'll all move for the public hearing.
We're now voting on the motion to have a public hearing. We will need a roll call. We can do it. Councilman Stein?
Madam Chair, so to have the public hearing, we need 27 votes, and if we don't get 27 votes, we don't have a public hearing, but we can still hear the bill?
It's actually a 2/3 vote of those who are present.
That is correct. Okay. All in favor of having the public hearing, please raise your hand.
Let's just do a machine if we're going to raise it.
Okay. We're going to do a machine now.
I didn't ask. I understand. How many people are here?
Madam Clerk, has everyone voted?
I'll take you to dinner if you
Hey, I want 17 to be.
Ayes 35, noes 1, 1 abstention.
Okay, we are now going to open the public hearing on 2010-710, amends the Metro Code pertaining to the restrictions for the issuance of permits to sell beer with certain areas of the downtown. Could I have a show of hands of those in favor? Thank you. A show of hands of those in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in favor wish to speak? I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Jameson.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-718 repeals the existing solid waste provisions of the Metro Code and substitutes them with the new solid waste code recommended by the Department of Public Works. Councilman Hunt.
Madam President, with all the committee reports in, I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Stanley.
I was going to ask Mr. Cooper if this ordinance does indeed include the waste transfer facilities that are allowed by Public Works or by Metro Council.
No, that's
No, it does
actually in
not.
the zoning. No, that's in the zoning code. It makes no change.
I have no problem with it.
All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Machine vote, please. Madam Clerk.
Ayes 32, noes 2, 1 abstention.
Motion passes. BL 2010-726 appropriates $200,000 to the Nashville Convention and Visitors Bureau to assist in post-flood tourism development and promotion efforts in the Music Valley area. Councilman Claiborne.
Having been approved by Budget and Finance and Convention and Tourism Committees, I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Mitchell.
Where's these dollars being appropriated from?
From the funds collected within the Opryland Secondary Tourism Development Zone as part of the additional 1% hotel motel tax.
Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-727 appropriates funds collected from the additional 1% hotel occupancy tax within the Gaylord Tourism Development Zone for the repair of the Grand Ole Opry House. Councilman Claiborne.
Again, having been approved by Budget and Finance, Convention and Tourism Committees, I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Todd.
I'd like to be shown as abstaining on this.
So noted. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-728 accepts the donation of a Polaris Ranger off-road vehicle from Police Explorers Post 911 to the Metro Nashville Police Department. Councilman Stein.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-729 adopts property identification maps for Metro government for the identification of real estate on tax assessment for tax assessment purposes. Councilman Gatto.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2010-730 approves a license agreement between Metro government and the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency for the use of space on the Cane Ridge Communications Tower. Councilman Stein.
Move approval.
Have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Motion to adjourn. All in favor?